Welcome. Welcome to yet another video. Today we are going to discuss on top 10 Java tricks every developer should know. Okay. Whether you are a fresher, whether you are experienced, whether you are a software engineer or a team lead or a software developer or a full stack developer or engineer, this video would be quite helpful. Using these tips and tricks, you can impress your superior, maybe a company, and because using this particular trick your productivity will be increased minimum 10 to 20%, right? So you will be way ahead with the other people who just for the sake of code does the code. So knowing this particular things would definitely give you an edge. Okay, so I've gathered this particular information from my own experience as well as getting the help from the other people who has been working with me for a long time, and these are majorly used in big companies, and also these are considered one of the standards. Okay, so let's begin without wasting the time. So if you are familiar with Java 8 program and programming language, right? So Java 8 as a feature, right, as a version, if you see, it has got the one of the most important features, and most of the features were introduced in Java 8 till date. If you see, with respect to any interviews, if you see, it holds a very important place, and definitely that particular questions will be asked in that particular interview, right? So making use of Java streams to make your code concise and make use the feature of the functional code, right? So this feature is about making use of the stream API for processing the collections in a functional style, basically. Okay, so what, by using this, what is the benefit, right? It simplifies the code, like, filtering, you're mapping something, you're reducing your collection. Okay, so you are doing lazy operations on an copy of your collection instead of working exactly on the collections, right? So you're taking the input as an collection and then you're producing something as an output which will not impact your original source, right? So let's take an example. We are taking here as an example of filter even numbers, right? So here we will be provided an array list. Okay, so which will have the number of list 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So we wanted the only those numbers to be filtered off which are even. And in the filter logic, as filter is using the predicate logic, right? So it will gather all which are satisfying the conditions, and only it will create a stream. And then if you see the next statement, if you see, it is collecting into a list. Okay, so ultimately we are printing that particular even number. Now if you see the output 2 4 and 6, these are all new in even numbers, right? So if you see here, the numbers is kept intact and the new list is being prepared, which is which we have done through the collectors dot list, right, to list. Hope you understand this particular thing and we can make use of this, which will be very helpful. Okay, so instead of writing a for loop logic and then writing this particular code is quite useful. We are making use of Java stream. Along with that, we are using the functional code programming, right? Use of optional. Now, to avoid any null pointer exception, right, writing a concise code to handle the null pointers, right? Now this particular optional features was brought into uh, to check the nulls, right? So to replace the logic where you have, where we used to manually write the code to check if it is null, if it is blank, if it is empty, right? So optional gave a better way to handle the null pointer exception. And also, if that is not, like, you can write your own logic of if it is if it is optional with using the null, right? You can check off null. There are different methods which will check if it is null or not, or what should be done in case of null, whether to throw an exception, right? So what happens with optional is that it improves your whatever you written the code, it is quite readable, right? It reduces the risk of null pointer exception. It is concisely handled. And let's say if the sonar cube is there, it will actually not give you any issue when you're trying to it is going to scan your code, right? So making use of an optional is a better way to write code, and definitely this will uh, give, improve your code as an efficient, and as also in terms of visibility, right? So and everybody will follow you, right? So making use of it will give you a edge, right, over there where people are following you, right? Optional. Now, if you see optional, if you see the op nullable, we are getting that particular username. Now, what if trying to see if the name it is present or not? Now, as I mentioned earlier, if it is present, then actually we can use like if it is present or not, or else if it is not present, what else we can do, right? So in this space, we can actually print something, and then also we can mention that the name is not provided. Okay, so it has got any other n number of methods, I would say. Please have a look at it. Hope this particular information was helpful. Now this is one of the important type references which has been introduced. There is a use of a var variable for the type references. Now priorly we used to name that particular specific type specifications, and then we have to create that right variable along with it. Now make with the use of this particular var, it lets the compiler infer implicitly the variable types, right? You doesn't have to explicitly mention those. Okay, so whatever from that is equal to, and then what is implemented, like let's say the new array list or whatever it is, right? It will implicitly take that variable types. Okay, so what will happen is that there is a reduce in the verbosity in the variable declaration. So it has been introduced as a part of Java 10, right? This is one of the good features which was introduced. Now if you see an example, a list is created and I have created that particular variable align. That doesn't need to implicitly write that, right? Explicitly write that. So if it is implicit and it is taking care of it. String builder. Now you must have been knowing about string builder, string buffer, right? Now when it comes to manipulation, like you already know string is immutable, right? So it is not the string, no matter how many modification you are trying to do, the new objects will be created instead of you are appending, right? So what will happen is that it creates a lot of objects in the memory. So instead of that, we can make use of a mutable object which is string builder. Okay, and then if you see, I've given you an example. So what will happen here is that it will not only create a new instance, it will not create a new instance, it will just replace your concatenated strings in the loop, right? So you're making use of the string builder. Now it avoids creating multiple objects, it improves the performance of your application and the code whatever you have written. So that will overall give you an edge, right? So if you see a string builder, I've created one, I've written a for loop, and here I've appended this Java, right? So if you see here, it's going to add a space as well as the Java to the every time it is going to the for loop for the 5 times, right? So this will give you a better concise way to write it. Now Lombok. Now this is one of the library which is introduced as part, we can include in the project. We have to just name the library, the dependency in the pom.xml. Automatically that library will be available at our, and then we can make use of. Now what is an Lombok? It is used to, we can make use and after the annotations. Okay, so priorly what we used to do is that we used to write the toString method, getter, setters, the constructor, and etc. Right. So get Lombok has provided as an annotations, which will only you have to just provide the annotation. Okay. You just have to provide at the rate getter, at the rate setter, at the rate builder, at the rate all no argument constructor, etc. Right. So which will create in behalf of you, right? Implicitly it will be taken care by the annotations. Now, what happens is that your code would be quite compact, concise, and clear, readable, right? So you have to. So it doesn't need to write the repetitive code. So only that annotation, if you annotate it over there, automatically that will be taken care. Okay. Now, if you see, I've just given you an example here, which will be clear to you. Now, there are some built-in functions which has been used in. Now, when it comes to Java 8, right? There were different built-in functional interfaces which were introduced. Now what is the benefit of using the functional interfaces, right? It's quite it is an implicit programming, and also it will make your code make use of the functional programming so that you can write that particular logic and execute it, right? So that doesn't need to repeatedly write and override those particular method. That will be inferred, right? So that benefit it gives, and there are different predicate functions, consumer, supplier, right? So it will simplify using the lambda expression. Okay. Now just give an example. I wanted to create a predicate which is going to calculate find the predicate even numbers. So the logic has been written over here. Now simply when you're trying to write that, so we can actually write that and then test it. Okay. So the is even dot test, when you're going to get it, then it is going to give you a true, right? So that's the way how we write that. Try with resources. This is one of the important features introduced in Java 7, and basically it is used for auto closing the resources which sometimes the developer might forget to close in the finally blocks or in the code, right? So it basically prevents your memory leakage, resource leakage, and also there is no provision of error, right? So it handles the error handling in a simple way, right? So you open your resources. If you see that, I gave you an example. You write that particular try under that. You name that particular buffered reader over there, and then you ultimately that it is taken care. If you see in the cache block or anywhere else, I have not written any closure, right? So it will be automatically taken care by the JVM. Now, reflection is quite powerful, I would say. So you must have already heard of Java reflection, and what it can do. It can actually navigate through your internal Java classes, like how many constructors are there, how many methods are there, what kind of static methods are there, how many methods are there, how many variables are there. These are all things which we can actually, with the help of the reflection, we can make and modify or change the control accesses as well, right? So it can walk you through that particular class and gives you an behavior, what in-depth details. So dynamically it is going to inspect and modify a class for this material, useful for like this kind of reflection will be made used by certain frameworks, library, and debugging to understand what's in there, right? So with the help of this, they have extended and then written some overall logic on top of it, right? So if you see here, we are loading for the one of the released class, and then from there I'm trying to get that particular method, that is get size one. So we can print that, so it will give all the method name, etc. You can do a lot of methods are there provided as inside that particular reflection API, right? And for your example, if you see breaking, one of the way of breaking the singleton design pattern is using the reflection. So you can understand how important or quite powerful it is, right? Use of parallel stream for faster data processing. Now you must have heard of processing, the sequential processing and the parallel processing with a part of Java 8 features. So we can use this particular if you wanted to take the advantage of your cores of the system. Let's say your system is having multiple cores, right? So threads will work as per the cores, and then we can actually define make use of the multi-threading features using the executor framework, or basically when we are dealing with the streams, right, we can make use of the parallel stream to process large set of data in a faster way. So parallel is a computation, right? So it the multiple threads will work to process that and compute that, right? So your overall time, it will be definitely reduced, although there might be a possibility that it might not follow the sequence, and every time you run it might end up with a different result, but definitely you are going to shorten or reduce your time to process that particular logic, right? uh, Now use of factory pattern with the static methods. Now this is used for creating an object using the static factory methods instead of static constructors. So instead of using the constructor, we can make use of this methods. What we do with the help of this, actually it will improve your readability of the code and then flexibility, right? Here is a logic, here is an example which I've written a car, where I've written a constructor and then I've written a car. So here what we can do is that we can actually we created a create method, right? So under that you are going to create a new method, right? So here if you see, I'm calling that particular create method directly with the name of that particular class name. Hope this example is helpful to you. Overall, I think these are the tips and tricks. I've gathered this so that it will be helpful to you. I hope this video will be helpful, and also you will share with the needy people. Uh, Also, if you, if this video was helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. I'll continue to post the helpful content, and also I will look forward for your comment if there is something which I can make a video on, so that people will be helpful on it, right? So thank you for watching.